of people want to spend their time learning an instrument like the piano, and why wouldn't you? Because obviously the piano is the best instrument. And this means that pianists and teachers like me often get asked quite a lot of questions about piano.
There's actually nothing on this paper.
So in this video, I'm going to answer them. And if you have any questions, then let me know in the comments and I will answer them in a future video. So these last couple of years, I've been kind of interested in the piano, and I was kind of wondering if any of you have known anyone to start late, or tips if it's common or uncommon where to start things like this. Well, it's never too late to learn the piano, and actually one of the first videos that I did on this channel was about learning the piano as an adult.
In this video, we're going to talk about age.
There are hundreds of studies that show that adults can learn music just as well as children, and they might even have an advantage at certain things like emotional concepts and things like that. I also think the beginning stage of learning an instrument for an adult is actually easier because you can understand the concept slightly easier. You can imagine that if you get a 5-year-old that's trying to learn about half beats, quarter beats, and how they relate to a 4-beat bar and stuff like that, that it gets very confusing for someone who has no concepts of fractions. Or if you say to a 5-year-old, this is supposed to sound mystical, they'll probably look at you with absolute confusion. Whereas adults have a bit more life experience and they can understand the emotional concepts, and they also can understand the actual concepts within music theory. So if I was an adult learning now, the first place I would start is by understanding what a scale is and why it's used, and then what triad chords are, because those two things make up a lot of songs. And if you want to go down the classical route and being able to sight read, get a good beginner book. The adult beginner book that I tend to use is Pam Wedgwood's It's Never Too Late to Learn Piano, and I will leave a link in the description to that book. And it's in fairly logical steps. What can I do to gain your musical knowledge aside from years of experience? Like, what books, courses, and music theory approach do you recommend? Very similar question, and I would fire the question back to you, what do you want to learn? Learning the piano isn't one skill, it's multiple skills. It's using your ears, it's using your eyes, and it's being able to get your fingers to move. If you want to be able to read really well and sight read music, then what you need to do is just get a stack of really easy music to read. It doesn't even really matter what age the books are aimed at, it's just getting a load of notes read. Because what you're trying to do is speed up your recognition of the note and then your ability to play it using your hands, which is kind of a two-step process. If you want to get good with your ears, then use the scales and chords from the theory stuff and start trying to listen to your favorite songs and work out the chords that might be used in that song, or what scale the entire piece of music is using. But either way, it's a game of saturation, and you have to spend a lot of time doing either or both. And the best tool for either one is to learn how and why with music theory. I have one question. Why don't you use your upright piano? So this question is referring to the piano that was here, and this is the first video I've done without it there. The reason that I don't use that piano is because an electric piano is much easier to record, and that's also why I use monitoring headphones in all of these videos, because I can't actually hear the piano out loud. And it just means that what I'm saying and what I'm playing can be separated from each other. How do you do quick trills in time with the left hand? I am learning Mozart Sonata number 16, and I'm really struggling on getting the trills right. Well, Mozart Sonata number 16 is an absolute classic. It goes like this. Now, I don't know where specifically they're talking about in terms of left-hand trills, but it's the same for either hand. And if you don't know, a trill is essentially this. And the best way to practice trills, in my opinion, is to measure them or count them out. So instead of playing just as fast as possible, which is essentially what you want it to sound like, try and play it mathematically, so like notes that are an eighth a beat long. So you might get something like this. And then you can try 16. And obviously use the fingers that are supposed to be used in the piece of music you're learning. So for example, in this particular piece, there's a trill that goes, or something like that. And the way that I would practice that is measure it out. And if you practice that trying to stay relaxed, then eventually you'll be able to do it. Do you find memory or sheet music ideal for playing pieces? And how do you get started with sight reading if you are too lazy? Great vids, by the way. Well, thank you. This is a loaded question. So if you are learning a piece of music for a performance, then by that point you probably will know it from memory anyway, with the amount of practice that you'll have to do to learn it. And that's a good thing. Sometimes people worry that they're not reading the music. And what I would say about that is it's good to memorize the music as long as you are also following it as backup. I would not try and exclusively memorize the piece and then not use the music at all, unless in the end performance you want to perform it without the music. And if you have a particular sight reading problem, them and you want to get better at sight reading, then you need to try and read the music anyway. And in terms of how to get started with sight reading, if you are too lazy, sight reading is just about how much stuff you can read. The only way that you will ever get good at sight reading is by reading lots of stuff. And if you are too lazy to spend some time sight reading, then do lots of little bits of sight reading. The way that I got good at sight reading was I had a massive stack of music, which was all relatively easy stuff, but each time I would sit down at the piano to play anything, I would go through a random piece of music first. And it didn't really matter how bad it was, because it's about saturation. It's trying to just read loads and loads of notes. And over time, you will get better. The important thing is, though, that you won't notice it right away, and you won't notice it in the moment. You'll only ever notice it if you look back 6 months ago at what you were able to read compared to now. But you have to be doing small amounts daily rather than spending 1 hour every 3 months sight reading, because that's painful for everyone involved. How do you record the P45 without any audio interface? Because I have tried to record on mine, but it didn't record the audio, or are you just using your microphone? Well, I actually do use an audio interface. I use a Focusrite, and then I plug this into that, and that into the computer. I use Logic, but if you use any DAW, so GarageBand, Logic, Pro Tools, Ableton, Cubase, any of the DAWs, if you use any of those and plug your audio interface in, it should recognize it, and then you should be able to plug a jack into the P45, into your audio interface, and then that's USB to the computer. If you have no idea what I just said, then fair enough. If you have any questions, then let me know in the comments, and if you want to find out how long it takes to become a professional pianist, then check out this video, and I will see you there.